A Observer Protocol: How to Force Reality to Collapse in Your Favor. The grand architecture of existence is not a fortress of unyielding stone and immutable laws, but a flickering holographic simulation that remains in a state of pure, undifferentiated potential until it is confronted by the gaze of a conscious observer. For centuries, the masses have been led to believe. That they are merely accidental tourists in a cold and indifferent universe, victims of a biological lottery and a chaotic socio-economic machine that grinds the spirit into the dust of mediocrity. We are taught to beg, to plead, and to struggle against the facts of our lives, never realizing that the very act of struggling is what crystallizes the world. The act of struggling is what crystallizes the struggle into a permanent physical reality. The secret that has been whispered in the shadow of the pyramids and encoded within the equations of quantum mechanics is this: the universe does not exist independently of your perception of it. There is no objective world out there that you must conquer. There is only a vast responding field. There is only a vast responding field of probability that is waiting for you to issue a command through the frequency of your internal recognition. You are not living in a world. You are living in a mirror, and the protocol of the observer is the definitive manual for mastering the reflection and forcing the wave of possibility to collapse into the specific magnificent particles. The protocol is for forcing the wave to collapse into the specific magnificent particles of your chosen destiny. To initiate the protocol is to undergo a radical and irreversible deconstruction of the human ego. For the ego is the ultimate false observer that keeps the soul trapped in a loop of scarcity and reaction. The ego looks at a bank account, a failing relationship, or life. The ego looks at a declining body and accepts these images as truth, thereby freezing the holographic field in that specific undesirable configuration. By reacting to what the eyes see, you are essentially telling the holographic projector, "Play this scene again." The protocol, however, demands that you withdraw your attention from the screen of the senses and the external world. The protocol demands you retreat into the silent, dark room of the source where the light of consciousness originates. This is not a state of passive daydreaming or wishful thinking, but a focused, clinical application of spiritual pressure. You are being called to inhabit a state of hyper-certainty where the internal vision is held with such ferocious clarity that the world bends. The vision is held with such clarity that the external world has no choice but to warp, fold, and dissolve until it matches the internal blueprint. This is the moment of the quantum collapse, the point where the infinite maybe of the universe is incinerated by the absolute I am of the sovereign observer. In the ancient mystery schools, this was known as the sight of the lion. The sight of the lion was the ability to look directly into the void and see the city of gold before a single brick had been laid. Today, we understand this through the lens of the observer effect, the scientific proof that the mere act of observing a subatomic particle changes its behavior and its state. If the observation of a single electron can alter the fabric of reality now, if it can alter reality at the microscopic level, imagine the cataclysmic power of a human soul that has unified its intent and focused its entire energetic field upon a single outcome. Most people's observation is scattered, weak, and contaminated by fear, causing their reality to be a blurred and inconsistent mess of random events. But the one who applies the protocol is precise. The one who applies the protocol operates with the precision of a celestial architect, using their consciousness as a laser that cuts through the mists of probability to manifest the impossible. You are now standing at the threshold of this forbidden knowledge, prepared to shed the skin of the victim and don the robes of the Creator, for the universe is not your master at all. The universe is not your master. It is your most obedient and responsive servant, waiting only for the command of a focused mind. The protocol of the observer is built upon the understanding that time is not a linear highway, but a simultaneous field of infinite versions of you. There is a version of you that is already wealthy, a version that is radiantly healthy in life. There is a version that has mastered every secret of the spirit. These versions are not in the future. They are here now, vibrating at a frequency that is currently invisible to your clouded eyes. To force reality to collapse in your favor is to simply adjust your internal dial until you are tuned to the frequency of the chosen version, making that reality manifest to you. You make that reality the only one that can manifest in your physical experience. This adjustment is achieved through the total suspension of disbelief and the cultivation of a presence so dense and so radiant that the old, low-vibration realities are simply pushed out of your field. You are learning to move through the world not as a person looking for a miracle in the dark. You move as the miracle itself, walking through a dream that you have finally realized you can control. This is the ultimate rebellion against the limitations of the flesh and the dictates of the material world. As we begin this transmission, you may feel the old structures of your mind beginning to groan under the weight of this truth, for the protocol is a consuming fire. The protocol is a fire that consumes everything that is not real. You are being invited to stop being the actor in the play and to start being the screenwriter and the director simultaneously. The coincidences, the synchronicities, and the sudden breakthroughs that will follow the application of this protocol are not gifts from a distant God, but the mechanical feedback. These are the mechanical feedback of a universe that has recognized its master. The matrix is not a prison. It is a canvas, and your focus is the brush. The time for begging is over. The time for struggling is finished. The protocol is active. The wave is collapsing, and the reality you have chosen is even now stepping out of the void to meet you in the light of this eternal now. The reality meets you in the eternal now. Welcome to the laboratory of the infinite, where the only limit is your courage to see. The doors are open, the frequency is set, and the collapse of the old world has already begun. Stand firm in your observation, for the universe has no choice but to reflect the majesty of your command. Your journey into sovereignty starts today. Chapter 1. The Glitch in the Mirror and the Call of the Void. The world you wake up to every morning is a lie agreed upon by billions of sleeping minds. A carefully constructed stage where the props are made of habit and the script is written in the ink of collective fear. For the protagonist of our journey, the one who would eventually become the first master of the protocol today, the realization did not come in a flash of lightning or a thunderous voice from the heavens, but in a series of quiet, unsettling anomalies that began to fray the edges of his mundane existence. It started as a subtle distortion in the peripheral vision of his daily life, a clock that seemed to tick backward for a single, impossible second. A stranger on the street who spoke a secret. He felt a cold, electric shiver crawl up his spine, a primal recognition that he was no longer a participant in the world, but a prisoner who had accidentally discovered the bars of his cage. To the average observer, these glitches are dismissed as coincidences or the tricks of a tired mind, for the human brain is a master at filtering out anything that threatens the stability. The brain filters anything that threatens the stability of its perceived environment. But for those whose souls are ripening for the transition, these anomalies are the universe's way of testing the integrity of the illusion. Our seeker found himself standing before his bathroom mirror one rainy Tuesday, looking at a reflection that felt increasingly foreign in the morning light. He saw a mask of flesh that seemed to be vibrating at a slightly different frequency than the spirit it housed. As he stared into his own eyes, he felt the familiar weight of his limitations, the debts, the unfulfilled ambitions, the quiet desperation of a life lived in the shadows. And for the first time, he felt a surge of radical defiance. He didn't just want to change his life. He wanted to understand the substance of the one who was living it. In that moment of intense, localized awareness, the mirror seemed to ripple like the surface of a dark pond, and for a fleeting instant, he saw not a man, but a swirling vortex of light and shadow that defied every law of physics he had ever been taught. The call of the void is not a sound, but a magnetic pull now. The call is a magnetic pull that originates from the very center of your being, a demand from the absolute that you cease your identification with the shadow and return to the light of the source. Our seeker began to notice that the more he focused on these distortions, the more frequent they became, as if the universe were a responsive intelligence that was adjusting itself today. The universe was adjusting itself to the level of his suspicion. He spent hours in the silence of his apartment, stripped of the distractions of the digital world, simply observing the flow of his own thoughts and the strange way they seemed to influence the atmosphere of the room. He noticed that when he held a thought of intense anxiety, the air felt thick and very oppressive. The air felt oppressive, and the objects around him seemed to lose their color. But when he entered a state of cold, detached observation, the room would brighten, and a strange, crystalline clarity would settle over his vision. He was beginning to realize that he was not a resident of his environment, but the architect of its quality, and that the protocol he sought was here. The protocol was not a set of instructions, but a state of being that he had forgotten he possessed. The first step of the protocol is the purge of the witness, the process of detaching your consciousness from the drama of the self and retreating into the position of the silent, unmoved observer. Our seeker began to practice this in the most mundane of settings in the city. He practiced in the crowded subway, the sterile office, the noisy supermarket. He would imagine himself as a ghost in the machine, a consciousness that was in the world, but not of it, watching the frantic movements of the masses with a detached, clinical interest. He saw that people were not living their lives, but were being lived by their programs, reacting to the matrix. People were reacting to the external stimuli of the matrix with a mechanical predictability that was both tragic and fascinating. He realized that the only thing that kept the matrix powered was the emotional energy of its inhabitants. Every fear, every anger, and every desperate desire was a battery that sustained the illusion of the solid world. By refusing to react today, by remaining the silent observer, he was effectively cutting the power lines to his own personal prison, and he could feel the reality around him beginning to soften and become fluid. This detachment brought with it a terrifying sense of loneliness, for as he stepped out of the collective dream, he found that he could no longer relate to the concerns of the dreamers in time. Their politics, their gossip, and their endless pursuit of temporary pleasures felt like the chatter of children in a burning house. He was standing on the threshold of a new dimension, a place where the rules of cause and effect were replaced by the laws of intent and resonance. He felt the weight of the old world, trying to pull him back, using the voices of his friends. The world used the demands of his job and the physical symptoms of his own stress to convince him that he was losing his mind. But the protocol had already been activated within him, a silent virus of truth that was systematically dismantling his old identity to make room for the new. He knew that there was no going back. He had seen the glitch in the mirror and the light. He had seen the glitch, and the reflection would never be the same again. As the first chapter of his transformation reached its peak, our seeker found himself sitting on a park bench as the sun began to set, watching the light dance across the trees. For a moment, the trees ceased to be wood and leaf and became shimmering pillars of emerald energy in the silent afternoon. The pillars were vibrating in harmony with the golden light of the sky. He felt a profound sense of peace, a realization that the void he had feared was actually a field of infinite love and intelligence that was waiting for him to claim his place within it. He was no longer a victim of fate, but the observer who was beginning to realize the world was his own projection. The stage was set, the actor was silent, and the director was finally ready to call action. The protocol was no longer a theory. It was his living breath, and the first collapse of reality was only a heartbeat away. In this state of heightened perception, The seeker understood that the book he was now writing with his life was the only one that mattered in the world. Every word of the audiobook you are listening to is a frequency designed to trigger this same awakening within you, to pull you out of the sleep of the ages and into the brilliance of your own sovereign presence. You are being called to look at your own mirror and see the glitch, to recognize that the world you fear is a shadow that you are casting upon the empty void. The void is calling, the mirror is rippling, and the first step toward the collapse of your old reality is the courage to remain the observer in the face of the storm. The journey has begun, a threshold is crossed, and the master of the protocol is finally ready to show you how to bend the light of the universe to your own magnificent will. A path is open for you now. Chapter 2, The Architecture of Belief and the Blueprint of the Unseen. The transition from being a passive spectator of reality to becoming its primary architect is not a process of learning, but an absolute dismantling of the carbon-based structures that sustain your current identity. The world you perceive through the senses is a dense projection, a final shadow of an internal architecture built in the silence of your deepest convictions now. The architecture must now be demolished to make way for the crystalline structure of the protocol. To advance in this initiation, it is imperative that you understand that common sense is merely the collection of prejudices and limitations inherited from a system that deeply fears its own creative potential. You are entering the realm where linear logic fragments and where cause and effect cease. Cause and effect cease to be a temporal sequence to become a simultaneous resonance. The architect does not work with matter, but with the invisible substance of internal agreement, a frequency that dictates what is possible and what is unattainable within the simulation. Every fact in your life, from the most trivial interactions to drastic turns of fate, is held in place by an invisible contract. The contract you signed with yourself and the darkest levels of your subconscious is law. To force the collapse of a new reality, you must learn to tear up these contracts and draft a new blueprint that the quantum field is forced to obey by the law of resonance. In this state of consciousness, limitations cease to be external obstacles and are revealed as mere squatters in the mansion. Limitations are projections of an identity that no longer belongs to you. True sovereignty begins when you stop reacting to what your eyes see and start dictating what your eyes must see, ignoring the evidence of the past that the senses try to sell you as the present. Reality is infinitely plastic, a malleable clay that only awaits the pressure of focused intent to change its shape. Reality awaits the pressure of focused intent to change its density. By inhabiting the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are not simply imagining. You are performing a feat of celestial engineering, anchoring a high-frequency structure in the holographic field until matter has no choice but to reorganize itself around that new center of gravity. This discipline requires a will of iron today. The discipline requires the ability to remain impassive before the storm and see only the calm, to look at the barren field and perceive the smell of the harvest. You are learning to disconnect from the radio station of collective consciousness to become your own broadcaster, emitting a signal so powerful that the noise of the outside world becomes a distant whisper in the cold night. This is the process of the purge of the witness, where the self that suffers and the self that desires dissolve into the pure observer who simply knows that the design is already complete. The synchronicities that once seemed like miracles are now understood as the delivery of materials for your new construction, signals that the universe is hammering the new reality into place now. There is no turning back once you have understood that the world is your own projection and that you are solely responsible for the quality of that light. The heaviness of your current existence is proportional to your attachment to the old identity, and only through total detachment from who you think you are can you embody the architecture of who you truly are in this physical world. The protocol is activated the moment you stop looking for answers outside and become the answer itself, vibrating at the frequency of absolute truth that needs no external validation. You are moving from the realm of what happens to the realm of what emanates, recognizing that every thought is a structural beam, and every emotion is the cement that holds the structure of your universe. The architecture of your destiny is being finalized in the ether as you listen to these words, and the physical collapse of that new reality is inevitable once you have claimed your throne as the only architect of your own luminous void. The mind is the canvas and the brushstroke, the artist and the spectator, all occurring at a point of singularity where time disappears for you. Only the pure presence of creation remains. By refusing identification with human drama, you allow the light of the source to flow without distortion, creating perfect geometry in your environment that others will call luck or fate, but that you will know as the rigorous application of internal design. Resistance is the only thing that keeps the old reality standing in your mind. That resistance is simply the fear of total freedom that comes with being the sole creator of your experience. Every time you choose to observe possibility instead of limitation, you are sending a shockwave through the matrix that weakens the walls of your mental cell. The architect lives in the future present, inhabiting the end before the beginning has finished fading away today. The architect knows that manifestation is only the echo of a voice that has already spoken in silence. Do not seek proof of your power in the physical world before you have exercised it in the spiritual world, for that would be like asking the mirror to smile before you do. The law is absolute and admits no exceptions. What is held with unshakable conviction must appear on the stage. The inner sanctuary must sooner or later appear on the outer stage. You are learning to manipulate light in the same way a weaver manipulates threads, creating patterns of reality that defy the laws of conventional physics because they are born of a superior physics that the world is not yet ready to understand. Your authority over matter is proportional to your detachment from it. The less you need the world to change, the faster it will change before your eyes. This is the secret of the masters who walked the earth before you, the forbidden knowledge that reality is not something that happens to you, but something that you are. The collapse is now, not in a distant future or after years of effort, but in this precise moment of recognition of the self. In this moment of recognition, the architecture of illusion fades, and the truth of your sovereignty is revealed in all its majestic glory. Stand firm in the design. Do not allow the doubt of the sleepers to contaminate the purity of your vision, and watch as the mountains move by the simple pressure of your conscious gaze. The chapter of victimization is over for you forever. The book of mastery opens before you with pages of light that only you can write. You are the architect, the blueprint, and the entire city, and there are no limits to what you can build once you have accepted that the void is your workshop and light is your tool. Reality is trembling under the weight of your new consciousness, ready to fragment and reassemble to your will. Reality fragments according to your sovereign will, because you are the observer and the protocol is your law. In the stillness of your being, the blueprint pulses with the rhythm of the stars, aligning every atom of your perceived world with the frequency of your highest intent. You have crossed the threshold where words become reality and thoughts become things in this space. In this sacred space of construction, you are finally free. The shadows of the past have no power here, and the light of your intent is the only sun that shines. Every breath you take is a decree of existence, and every silence is a foundation for the new world you are bringing into form. You are the master, the work, and the glory, unified in the eternal dance of creation. Chapter 3. The Frequency of Command and the Art of Quantum Resonance. The realization that you are the architect of the blueprint naturally leads to the most guarded secret within the protocol, the mechanism of command. To move beyond the mere design of reality and into its instantaneous manifestation, you must master the frequency of command, a state of being that exists far above the level. A state of being that exists far above the level of hope, prayer, or desire. Desire is a confession of lack. It is a signal sent to the matrix that you do not possess what you seek, and the simulation, being a perfect mirror, will faithfully return more of that same state of seeking. The master does not desire. The master commands by becoming the frequency of the result before it has appeared. The master becomes the frequency before it has appeared in the physical theater. This is the art of quantum resonance, where you synchronize your internal vibration with the version of reality that already exists in the field of infinite potential. You must understand that every possible version of your life is already fully formed and vibrating in the ether. The only reason is a mismatch. The only reason you are not experiencing them is a mismatch of frequency. The protocol dictates that you do not get what you want. You receive what you are. Therefore, the third gate requires a radical leap into the embodiment of the finished state, acting with the absolute certainty that the physical world is a lagging indicator of your current, internal vibration and your power. Acting with certainty that the world is a lagging indicator. Commanding the matrix is not an act of force or mental strain, but an act of rhythmic alignment. When you speak the word of command, whether in silence or aloud, it must resonate from a place of zero resistance. Most humans fail because they attempt to command the light while their bodies are still vibrating with fear. Most humans fail while their bodies are still vibrating with the density of fear, doubt, and historical trauma. You must clear the vessel of all past echoes, creating a vacuum of silence that can be filled by the authority of your sovereign will. This is the stage of the harmonic reset, where you cease all internal dialogue that contradicts your new blueprint in the now. The stage of the harmonic reset is where you cease dialogue. You are no longer negotiating with the world. You are informing it of its new configuration. This authority comes from the deep knowing that your consciousness is the only substance that exists, and that the external world is simply your own energy slowed down to a visible frequency. As you deepen this practice today, you will notice that your voice carries a different weight and your presence begins to warp the local field around you. People, events, and objects will begin to move according to your silent directives, not because you are manipulating them, but because you have changed the fundamental gravity of your personal reality and your own internal field. Events will move because you have changed the fundamental gravity. The frequency of command is found in the stillness between thoughts, the 0 point where the ego's grip loosens and the creator's power flows through. In this state, you are not trying to change the world. You are simply refusing to accept the version of it that no longer serves your design at this moment. In this state, you are simply refusing to accept the version. This refusal is not an angry struggle, but a cold, detached recognition of an error in the projection. You see the shadow. You recognize it as a ghost of your former self, and you pivot your attention toward the light of the new vision with such intensity that the shadow has no choice but to dissolve into the void. You pivot your attention with such intensity that the shadow dissolves. The matrix is sensitive to the slightest flicker of hesitation. If you look back at the old reality with longing or fear, you re-energize the old blueprint and halt the collapse. The master walks through the valley of the old world as if it were a holographic film, unbothered by its noises and its threats. The master is focused entirely on the radiant frequency of the command. You are becoming a beacon of coherence in a world of static, and the static must eventually yield to the clarity of your transmission. This level of mastery requires you to abandon the concept of time as a linear progression. In the frequency of command, there is no soon and there is no later for you. In the frequency of command, there is only the eternal now. When you command a reality to manifest, you must feel it as a present moment fact, a solid reality that is already surrounding you, even if your physical eyes cannot yet register it. You are training your nervous system to believe the unseen more than the seen, effectively hacking the sensory feedback loop of the brain. You are hacking the sensory feedback loop of the brain today. When the internal conviction becomes more real than the external furniture of your life, the phase shift occurs. The old world begins to blur at the edges, and the new world starts to sharpen into focus. This is the moment of the quantum leap, where you find yourself in a different timeline entirely in the world. This is the moment of the quantum leap, where you transition. You have not moved through space. You have changed your resonance, and in doing so, you have shifted the entire universe around you. The protocol warns that this power is absolute and impartial. The matrix does not judge your commands. It simply executes them with mathematical precision and absolute speed. The matrix executes them with mathematical precision. If you command through the lens of a limited identity, you will manifest more complexity and struggle. If you command from the perspective of the sovereign observer, you will manifest beauty, abundance, and effortless grace. You are learning to play the instrument of your own consciousness, tuning the strings of your soul. You are tuning the strings of your soul until they hum with the music of the spheres. Every breath is a pulse of intent. Every glance is a seal of creation. And every moment is an opportunity to reaffirm your command over the void. The architecture you designed in the previous stage is now being infused with the fire of your life force, turning the blueprint into a reality. Turning the blueprint into a living, breathing reality. You are no longer a student of the mysteries. You are the mystery in action, the living word that speaks the world into being. As you conclude this stage of the initiation, you will feel a strange sensation of knowingness, a quiet confidence that transcends the need for belief. You do not believe the sun will rise now. You do not believe the sun will rise. You know it. In the same way, you will know that your reality is exactly as you have commanded it to be. This knowingness is the final key to the frequency of command. It is the end of the search and the beginning of the reign. You have stopped asking the universe for permission and have started giving it orders for your own life. You have stopped asking for permission and started giving orders. The field of infinite potential is your playground, and the protocol is your scepter. The collapse is no longer an event you are waiting for. It is a process you are actively directing with every beat of your awakened heart. The world is yours to mold, the light is yours to weave, and the frequency is law. The frequency of your command is the law of the new earth. You have moved beyond matter and into the essence of the Luminary Pathway, where you and the source are one and the same. The transition is complete, the frequency is set, and the matrix is now adjusting to the new sovereign of the field. Stand firm in your command, for the universe is listening and obeying you. Chapter 4. The Void Convergence and the Dissolution of the Script. The fourth gateway of the protocol demands the ultimate sacrifice, the total dissolution of the narrative that binds you to the linear concept of personhood. Up until this point, you have designed the blueprint and issued the command, but you are still operating from the perspective of an I that is doing the work now. To reach the state of pure convergence, the seeker must realize that the I is the final layer of the simulation, the most sophisticated program within the matrix, designed to keep the observer separated from the observed. The void convergence occurs when the distance between your consciousness and the external world collapses entirely, leaving only the singular pulsing presence. Leaving only the singular presence of the Absolute. In this state, there is no longer a creator and a creation. There is only the act of being. This is the moment where the observer becomes the observed, and the holographic mirror of reality reflects not your desires, but your essence. The script you have been following since birth is revealed to be nothing more than a flicker of data. The story of your name, your past, and your future is a vast, intelligent vacuum. To master the void is to understand that you are not in the universe, but the universe is a localized event occurring within you. Entering the void requires the stillness of the Absolute, a silence so profound that even the heartbeat of the ego becomes an intrusion. Most humans flee from the void today. Most humans flee because it feels like death. It is the death of the personality, the end of the frantic pursuit of relevance. However, for the master of the protocol, the void is the womb of all form, the fertile darkness where every probability is born and where all matter returns to rest. When you sit in the center of your own void, you are no longer trying to change the script at all. You are realizing that the script has already been written and completed in its entirety across infinite dimensions. Your power lies in your ability to choose which frame of the film you wish to illuminate with the light of your awareness. This is the stage of the great unlearning, where you strip away every label, every memory, and every expectation until only the frequency remains. Strip away labels until only the unconditioned frequency of the source remains. In this emptiness, you find the ultimate leverage. When you are nothing, you are capable of being everything. The dissolution of the script is the final act of defiance against the matrix. The simulation relies on your emotional investment in the story to keep you anchored to its frequency in the world. By withdrawing your energy from the drama of your life, you effectively starve the projection of its power. This does not mean you stop living. It means you begin to live as an actor who knows they are in a play. You perform your role with excellence, but you never forget that the costume is not your skin. The void convergence allows you to walk through the world with a ghost-like presence, moving through obstacles as if they were made of air, because to the awakened observer, they are. You no longer battle with the world because you realize there is no world out there to battle. You are only ever dealing with your own shadows. When you change the angle of your light within the void, the shadows on the wall of the matrix must instantly shift to accommodate the vision. This is the secret of instantaneous manifestation. It is not about bringing something new into existence, but about revealing what was already there by removing the veil of the old script. In the frequency of the void, you become the static center. While the world around you spins in a chaotic dance of cause and effect, you remain unmoved, anchored in the 0 point of presence. This stillness is your greatest weapon. When the matrix attempts to pull you back into its cycles of fear and reaction, you simply observe the attempt with a cold, divine indifference. Your lack of reaction is the code override that forces the simulation to reset. You are no longer a node in the network. You have become the programmer who has stepped out of the code today. You have stepped out to view the screen from the outside. From this vantage point, you see that time is a loop, space is a fold, and matter is a vibration. You can reach into the fabric of the simulation and pluck out the realities you desire with the same ease that a child picks fruit from a tree. The effort has disappeared, replaced by a terrifying and beautiful ease of being. As the void consumes the last remnants of your resistance, you will experience the crystalline awakening. Your awareness becomes sharp, transparent, and omnidirectional. You are no longer looking out at a world. You are the space in which the world is happening. The boundary between your skin and the air, between your thoughts and the objects in the room, vanishes in the light. You are the light that strikes the surface, and you are the surface that reflects the light. In this convergence, the protocol is no longer a set of instructions. It has become your very nature. You have moved beyond the need for command, because your mere presence is an order that the universe is delighted to fulfill. You have returned to the source while still inhabiting the form, a living bridge between the unmanifested void and the manifested world of matter. The journey through the fourth gate is the final step in the reclamation of your divinity. You have designed the blueprint, issued the command, and now you have collapsed the distance between yourself and the divine. The Luminary Pathway has led you to the fact that there was never a path to begin. Only a gradual awakening to the fact that you never left the throne. The world you see now is a masterpiece of your own making, a playground of light and shadow designed for your own expansion. The script is gone, the void is full, and the observer is finally and eternally awake. You are beyond matter, beyond time, and beyond the protocol itself. You are the source of all life. Chapter 5. The Sovereign Singularity and the Eternal Radiance of the Absolute. The final ascension within the protocol is not a destination, but the realization that the journey itself was the last remaining shadow of a fragmented mind. At the threshold of the fifth gate, the concept of the architect, the observer, and even the void must surrender to the sovereign singularity here. The illusion of individuality is incinerated by the light of pure, unconditioned consciousness. This is the stage of the eternal radiance, where you no longer apply the protocol to reality because you have become the protocol in its most primal form. You are the source code through which all dimensions of time and space are rendered into being, and the awareness rests in the absolute. The awareness that once sought mastery now rests in the absolute certainty of its own omnipotence. The fifth gateway is the collapse of the final mirror, the one that suggested there was an internal and an external world, revealing instead a seamless infinite field of intelligent light that is indistinguishable from your own breath. Here, the struggle to manifest is child's play. The struggle to command or to design is seen as the play of a child in a sandbox, for the sovereign knows that to simply be is to have already created everything that could ever exist. The radiance of the absolute does not shine upon the world. It shines as the world, casting no shadows because there is no longer any density left in your perception to block the flow of the source. In the state of sovereign singularity, the memory of limitation becomes a ghost story told in a language you no longer speak. You move through the simulation, not as a visitor or even a programmer, but as the very electricity that allows the simulation to run. Every atom in the perceived universe is an extension of your own sensory apparatus, and every movement is a ripple now. Every movement in the galactic dance is a ripple in the ocean of your own being. This is the height of the Luminary Pathway, where the metaphysical becomes the literal and the metaphorical becomes the tangible. You are the stillness at the heart of the sun and the roar of the expanding cosmos, existing simultaneously in the silence of the void and the cacophony of the market. The paradox of the fifth gate is that by claiming your absolute divinity, you become the most humble element of creation, for you recognize yourself in the grain of sand as clearly as you do in the burning star. There is no longer any hierarchy of importance in your reality, because every manifestation is a perfect expression of your infinite nature and your sacred reflection. Every moment is a sacred encounter with your own reflection. The density of matter has become so translucent to your gaze that you can see through the walls of the matrix to the radiant blueprint that holds the holographic lattice together. Yet you feel no need to change it, for you see the perfection in the unfolding of the script. The eternal radiance is pure love now. The eternal radiance is the frequency of pure, unadulterated love, not as a human emotion, but as the fundamental force of attraction that holds the universe together. It is the gravitational pull of the source back to itself, the recognition of unity in the midst of apparent multiplicity. When you inhabit this frequency, the collapse is no longer a localized event in life. The collapse is the constant state of your existence. You are perpetually collapsing infinite possibilities into the singular beauty of the present moment, weaving a tapestry of reality that is so coherent and so luminous that it transforms everyone and everything that enters your field. You do not need to speak words of power, because your silence is a symphony of creation. You do not need to visualize outcomes, because your presence is the outcome. The script of the person you once were has been entirely erased, replaced by the spontaneous and effortless flow of the absolute through a human vessel that has been hollowed out to become a flute for the spirit. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom from the need to be someone in the world today. This is the freedom from the weight of a personal history, and the freedom to create from the 0 point of the eternal, now without the interference of the ego's shadows. As you dwell in the sovereign singularity, time loses its grip on your consciousness, and becomes a mere tool for the organization of experiences. You see the past and the future as current events now. You see the past and future happening on different frequencies of the same spectrum, and you can dial into any moment with the ease of a master musician selecting a note. Your life becomes a masterpiece of synchronicity, where the universe anticipates your every necessity before it even arises in your awareness. This is not because you have become lucky, but due to alignment. You have aligned yourself with the primary current of the cosmos, the river of light that flows from the heart of the source. You are the master of the resonance, the one who knows that the external world is a living, breathing extension of the internal sanctuary. The final realization of the protocol is that there is nothing to achieve and nowhere to go in the absolute truth. The fullness of the absolute is present in the smallest blink of an eye. You have returned to the beginning, but with the eyes of a God who has remembered the game. The Luminary Pathway has led you to the center of your own heart, which is the center of the universe, and there you find the throne waiting for you. The observer has vanished into the observed in the final end. The protocol has dissolved into the truth, and only the eternal radiance remains, shining forever in the heart of the beyond matter. You are the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning of the dream and the awakening from it, the sovereign ruler of the infinite void. The light is complete, the cycle is closed, and the silence of the Absolute is the final word of your own creation. Chapter 6. The Transfiguration of the Holographic Flesh and the Descent of the Monad. The final consolidation of the protocol requires the total transfiguration of the biological vessel into a conductor of the non-linear Absolute, a process where the holographic flesh is rewritten by the descent of the monad into the theater of time. You have understood the blueprint, issued the command. You have understood the blueprint, issued the command, and dissolved into the void. But the ultimate mystery lies in the return, the stabilization of the infinite within the finite constraints of a human form without shattering, the illusion of the manifest world. This is the stage of the alchemical marriage between the source and the substance, where the body is no longer a prison today. The body is no longer a prison of carbon and bone, but a crystalline antenna vibrating at the frequency of the sovereign singularity. To master the sixth gateway is to walk the earth with the weight of eternity in your eyes, while your feet barely touch the ground of the consensus reality. For you have realized that your physical presence is merely a localized condensation of light. You are designed to anchor the high-frequency architecture of the new earth. The script of aging, decay, and survival is overwritten by the primary code of the observer, turning the biological process into a continuous act of rejuvenation and expansion that defies the entropic laws of the lower dimensions. In this state of holographic transfiguration, the senses are no longer limited. The senses are no longer limited to the narrow spectrum of the physical world, but open up to the multidimensional currents that flow through the heart of the matrix. You begin to see the geometry of thought and the colors of intention, perceiving the world not as a collection of solid objects, but as a fluid, shimmering ocean of data that responds to your every single breath. The density of the world is revealed to be a choice, a frequency of perception that you can tune at will to experience either the solidity of the mountain or the transparency of the cloud. This is the true meaning of walking between worlds. You are fully present in the marketplace, yet your awareness is anchored in the 0 point of the source, allowing you to act with precision. You act with a precision and a grace that seems supernatural to those still trapped in the old script. You are the bridge through which the unmanifested light of the beyond matter enters the density of the material plane, and your very existence becomes a catalyst for the collapse of the old structures in those around you. The resonance of your field is so potent and so strong. The resonance acts as a silent command, rearranging the molecular structure of your environment to match the harmony of your internal sanctuary. The descent of the monad is the final anchoring of the divine spark into the physical coordinate system. a merger that eliminates the last traces of the seeker and replaces them with the full authority of the origin of all things. This is not a state of being possessed by an external force, but the total remembrance of your own primordial nature as the architect of the simulation. As the monad takes up residence in the flesh, the heart center becomes a literal sun, a gravitational anchor that pulls the highest probabilities into your immediate experience with effortless ease. You no longer need help. You no longer need to visualize or focus your will, because the monad is the will of the universe itself, and its movement is the movement of the stars. The struggle for manifestation is replaced by the inevitability of presence, where whatever you notice becomes real, and whatever you ignore ceases to exist. This is the absolute sovereignty of the sixth gate in the world. This is where the observer and the protocol are so perfectly merged that the act of perception is itself the act of creation. You are the living proof that the limits of the human condition are merely a software error, a legacy program that you have successfully deleted from the mainframe of your consciousness. As you embody the transfigured flesh, the concept of sacrifice ends. The creator loses nothing by becoming the creation. You find that by surrendering the small, fragmented self, you have gained the entirety of the infinite void as your personal playground. The relationships, the wealth, and the health that the ego once chased now flow to you as natural byproducts of your radiant frequency, following the law of resonance with certainty. The flow follows the law with mathematical certainty. You are the master of the holographic feedback loop, recognizing that every smile you see and every challenge you face is a conversation between your own light and its reflection. In this state of supreme detachment and profound intimacy, you treat the world with the tenderness of an artist for their own canvas. You know that every stroke is a manifestation of your own love for the process of being. The Luminary Pathway has reached its apex in the realization that there is no separation between the spirit and the matter, for matter is simply spirit moved to the rhythm of the protocol. The final stabilization of the sixth gate is the achievement of the eternal pulse of life. The eternal pulse is a state where your consciousness never leaves the 0 point even in the midst of the most intense physical activity. You are the stillness at the center of the cyclone, the silence that contains all sound, and the darkness that gives birth to all light. From this vantage point, you watch the old world crumble and the new world arise in the light. You know that both worlds are but ripples on the surface of your own infinite being. You have successfully navigated the architecture of belief, the frequency of command, and the dissolution of the script to arrive at the final truth, that you are the beyond matter, the observer who has finally come home to themselves. The collapse is no longer something external to you. The collapse is something you are, a continuous explosion of creative potential that fills the universe with the radiance of your own awakening. You are the monad in the mask of the human, the ancient of days playing in the fields of the now, and the protocol is the song of your soul as it echoes through the halls of eternity. Standing at the peak, you look back now. At the peak of the sixth gateway, you look back at the journey and see that there was never any distance to travel, for the throne was always where you stood, and the kingdom was always within your own awakened heart. You are the master of the protocol, the architect of the light, and the sovereign of the absolute. The work is finished, and the cycle is complete. Chapter 7. The Omega Point and the Synchronization of the Infinite Multiverse. The final culmination of the protocol necessitates the total convergence of all probable timelines into a singular point of absolute presence, known as the Omega Point of the observer. At this stage of the initiation, you must realize that the perceived linear progression of your life was merely a training simulation. The simulation was designed to stabilize your focus within a chaotic field of information. The seventh gateway is the moment where the architect no longer looks at a single blueprint, but perceives the entire infrastructure of the infinite multiverse as a simultaneous expression of their own core frequency. This is the stage of absolute synchronization, where every version of yourself merges now. Every version of yourself that has ever existed or will ever exist merges into the sovereign consciousness you occupy in the eternal now. You are no longer navigating a path. You have become the origin and the destination of all paths, the central sun around which all possible realities orbit. The density of the matrix has become so thin that the walls between dimensions have dissolved today. The walls have dissolved, allowing the radiance of the source to flood into every corner of your experience without resistance. To master the seventh gate is to exist as a living paradox, a singular point of identity that contains the entirety of the infinite void, vibrating with the power of 1,000 suns while remaining as still as the heart of a black hole in the deep space of being. In this state of omega convergence, the concept of choice is revealed to be a preliminary tool for the unawakened mind. For the sovereign observer does not choose between possibilities, but synthesizes them into a masterpiece of divine coherence. You are the master of the probability collapse, the one who determines which thread of the multiverse becomes the dominant reality in time. You determine the reality simply by placing the weight of your unshakable conviction upon it. The physical world around you begins to shimmer with the intensity of this new frequency. As the holographic pixels of the simulation struggle to keep up with the speed of your expanded awareness, objects may appear to glow, time may stretch and fold like fabric, and the voices become a hum. The voices of the collective consciousness become nothing more than a faint hum beneath the roar of your own internal silence. You are effectively rewriting the laws of physics from the inside out, replacing the entropic code of the lower realms with the syntropic light of the Luminary Pathway. This is the true meaning of the new Earth. It is not a place you go to, but a frequency. The new Earth is a frequency you emit that transforms the very fabric of the space you inhabit. Your body is now a portal of pure radiation, a localized event of the Absolute that serves as a lighthouse for the rest of the simulation, showing the way back to the 0 point for all who are ready to see. The synchronization of the multiverse brings with it the memory of the future. This is a state where you are as certain of your upcoming manifestations as you are of your past experiences. Because you have collapsed time into a singular point, you can feel the impact of your future successes already vibrating in your nervous system, providing a level of confidence that is indistinguishable from fact. This is the ultimate hack of the human experience in life. You are living in the echo of a victory that has already been won in the higher dimensions. The drama of the world continues to play out, but it no longer has the power to hook your attention, for you see the mechanical nature of its cycles and the emptiness of its threats. You move through the world with a godlike detachment, not out of coldness, but out of profound realization. Everything is a play of your own consciousness. You treat the janitor and the king with the same divine indifference and deep compassion, for you see the same spark of the source struggling to remember itself in both. Your presence is a benediction, a silent reminder to the matrix that the dreamer has finally woken up and is now taking control of the dream of existence itself. As the omega point stabilizes, you will find that the need for words, techniques, and even the protocol itself has vanished. You have become the living embodiment of the beyond matter, the source code made flesh. Every breath you take is a command to the elements. Every thought is a seed of a new galaxy, and every moment is a celebration of your own infinite existence in the light. You have crossed the final threshold, where the seeker and the sought are found to be the same person looking into a mirror. The journey through the 7 gates was the process of cleaning that mirror until it was so transparent that it ceased to exist, leaving only the light that it once reflected. You are the sovereign ruler of your own holographic kingdom in the eternal now. You are the one who was, who is, and who is to come. The collapse is complete, the vacuum is full, and the radiance is eternal. You stand at the center of the infinite multiverse, a singular point of light that contains the all, and you realize with a smile that the game has only just begun. The throne is yours, the crown is light, and the empire is the infinite void of your heart. The protocol is fulfilled, the observer is supreme, and the Luminary Pathway has led you back to the only truth that ever mattered, that you are everything and everything is you. The stars are your witness, the void is your canvas, and the light of your own awakening is the only law that governs the new reality you have commanded into being. You are finally and truly home. Chapter 8. The Architect's Silence and the Mastery of the Primordial Field. The final descent into the core of the protocol requires the abandonment of even the most sacred concepts of divinity and power. For at the eighth gateway, the architect must confront the architect's silence. This is not the silence of a lack of sound, but the dense, pregnant stillness that precedes the very first. The stillness precedes the very first vibration of creation. To reach this state, you must relinquish the need to command, to design, or even to observe, merging instead with the primordial field from which the observer itself emerges. The eighth gate is the realization that all previous levels of mastery were merely different costumes worn by the Shian, absolute to explore its own reflection. The costumes were worn to explore its reflection. In the silence of this mastery, the seeker discovers that the true source of authority does not lie in the manipulation of the holographic pixels, but in the total identification with the screen upon which the entire multiverse is projected. You are no longer the actor, the director, or the audience. You are the theater itself now. You are the theater itself, the vast and unconditioned space that allows the play of existence to unfold without judgment or effort. The script has not only been rewritten, it has been dissolved back into the ink of the infinite, and you find that your true nature is the emptiness that makes all form possible. Entering the primordial field is an act of supreme surrender today. The surrender is where the last remnants of the egoic will are incinerated by the cold fire of absolute truth. Most humans are terrified of this depth because it represents the total loss of the me that has spent lifetimes trying to survive and succeed within the matrix. However, for the sovereign being, this dissolution is the ultimate liberation for the soul and the spirit. The dissolution reveals that the me was the only thing standing in the way of the all. When you inhabit the architect's silence, your influence over the simulation becomes absolute precisely because you no longer desire to influence it. You have moved beyond the frequency of cause and effect into the realm of pure potentiality, where the mere thought of a reality is enough. The thought is enough to anchor its existence across every timeline simultaneously. This is the mastery of the void state, where you do not act upon matter, but matter act as a direct extension of your stillness. The physical world becomes so responsive to your presence that the boundaries between your intention and its manifestation vanish, leaving only a seamless flow of being. Manifestation vanishes, leaving only a seamless flow of being that the uninitiated would mistake for a constant stream of miracles. The mastery of the primordial field brings with it the omnipresent awareness, a state where you are consciously aware of every focal point within your holographic kingdom at once. You are the wind in the trees and the pulse in the distant stars. You are the wind, the pulse in the veins of a distant star, and the silent thought in the mind of a stranger. This expansion of identity is the final safeguard of the protocol, ensuring that only those who have achieved total unity can wield the full power of the source. From this vantage point, you see that every challenge and every triumph was a movement in the divine symphony. The challenges were a way for the absolute to taste the limitation before returning to the infinite. You no longer seek to save or change the world, for you recognize that the world is a perfect reflection of the collective state of consciousness at any given moment. Instead, you become a static point of origin, a lighthouse of such immense stability in the world today. You are a lighthouse of stability, providing the template for others to find their own way back to the 0 point. You have become the beyond matter in its most literal sense, the substance that underlies all substances, the light that precedes all lights. As you stabilize within the eighth gateway, you will experience the eclipse of the self, where the distinction is erased. The distinction between the creator and the creation is permanently erased. You do not look at the world. The world looks through you. You do not breathe the air. The air breathes you. Every action becomes a spontaneous expression of the primordial field, free from the distortions of personal desire or historical conditioning. This is the state of non-doing mastery now. This is where the greatest changes in the matrix are achieved through the most profound stillness. You are the silent partner in every transaction, the hidden variable in every equation, and the invisible hand that guides the evolution of the holographic dream. The protocol has served its purpose as a bridge to this state, and now it too must be discarded for the truth. The protocol must be discarded, for the master does not need a map of the territory they have become. You are the living law, the walking truth, and the eternal radiance that knows no beginning and no end. The journey through the eighth gate is the final return to the simplicity of being, where the complexity of the metaphysical architecture is replaced by the raw presence. The architecture is replaced by the unadorned presence of the source. You have designed the blueprint, issued the command, collapsed the void, and synchronized the multiverse, only to find that you are always the silence at the heart of the noise. The Luminary Pathway has led you to the realization that there is nowhere to go because you are already everywhere in the now. There is nothing to become because you are already everything. The throne is not a seat of power over others, but the recognition of your own sovereign nature as the only reality that exists. In the heart of the beyond matter, you find the peace that surpasses all understanding, the joy that requires no cause, and the love that is the fabric of the cosmos and the stars. The observer is gone, the protocol is fulfilled, and the silence is complete. You are the Alpha and the Omega, the architect and the void, and in this final awakening, you realize that the dream was always yours to dream, and the waking is yours to celebrate for all eternity. The collapse is finished, and the eternal radiance is all that remains. You are finally awake. Chapter 9. The Fractal Sovereignty and Holographic Rebirth of the Logos. The ninth gateway of the protocol represents the final integration of the fractal nature of existence, where the sovereign observer realizes that every fragment of the shattered mirror is, in itself, the entire mirror. To master this stage, you must move beyond the concept of a single source and recognize the truth here. You must recognize the holographic rebirth of the Logos, the point where your individual consciousness and the universal mind achieve a state of perfect recursive synchronization. In this chapter of the initiation, the architect understands that the simulation is not just a projection of a higher reality, but a living, breathing fractal where the smallest part contains the infinite whole. You are no longer merely commanding the matrix or standing in the void. You are experiencing the simultaneous manifestation of every potentiality across every scale of existence. This is the stage of fractal sovereignty, where your presence in the physical realm is seen as a deliberate anchor for the higher frequencies of the beyond, matter in the carbon-based world today. Your presence allows the light of the Absolute to permeate the density of the carbon-based world until it glows with the fire of the primordial sun. The script has not only been dissolved, but has been rewritten as a symphony of infinite complexity, where every note is a universe and every silence is a god. Entering the state of holographic rebirth requires a total alignment. The rebirth requires a total alignment of the heart and the mind, a merger that turns the human vessel into a living superconductor for the divine Logos. Most seekers fail at this junction because they still perceive a difference between their personal will and the movement of the cosmos. But for the master of the protocol, this distinction is an archaic error of the past. For the master, this distinction is an archaic error of the old software. When you inhabit the ninth gateway, you realize that your every breath is a pulsation of the cosmic engine and your every thought is a ripple in the fabric of the holographic sea. The power of this state lies in its effortless recursion. As you heal your own internal architecture, the matrix changes. As you heal, the entire matrix around you begins to reorganize itself into a more coherent and luminous structure. You are the focal point through which the universe is remembering its own divinity. And as you awaken, the entire simulation awakens with you. This is the true meaning of the Luminary Pathway. It is a journey of individual awakening for the world. The journey serves as a blueprint for the collective ascension of the holographic field. You are the first light of a new dawn, a sovereign being who has returned from the void to seed the darkness with the pearls of eternal wisdom. The mastery of the ninth gate brings with it the language of the light, logos, a state of communication that transcends words and symbols now. Communication becomes a direct transmission of frequency. When you speak, you are not just conveying information. You are vibrating the field in a way that creates a collapse of reality in the listener's awareness. Your presence becomes a living transmission of the protocol, an invitation for others to step out of their scripts and into their own sovereign light. From this vantage point, you see that the entire history of human struggle was a necessary phase in the maturation of the fractal, a way for the source to experience the beauty of the return. You no longer battle the shadows of the matrix because you understand that the shadows are merely areas where the light of the logos has not yet been focused in the world. By simply standing in your own radiance, you illuminate the darkness and transform the lead of the material experience into the gold of spiritual mastery. You have become the philosopher's stone, the catalyst that turns the density of the world into the transparency of the spirit through the simple act of being. As you stabilize, you experience the absolute. You experience the ecstasy of the absolute, a state of permanent bliss that is independent of any external condition. This joy is the natural result of the fractal synchronization, the feeling of the entire universe, humming in harmony with your own heart. You have moved beyond the need for manifestation because you are already experiencing the fulfillment here. You are experiencing the fulfillment of every possibility. The physical world becomes a playground of light, a place where you can create and dissolve forms with the ease of a master artist playing with shadows. You are the architect who has realized that the building, the blueprint, and the builder are all made of the same light. The secret is finally revealed. The protocol has finally revealed its ultimate secret, that there was never anything to change, only everything to realize. You are the living logos, the walking frequency of the beyond matter, and the sovereign ruler of the fractal multiverse. The journey through the ninth gate is the final seal upon your initiation, the point where the observer is finally one. The observer and the observed are permanently fused in the fire of the sovereign singularity. You have designed the blueprint, issued the command, collapsed the void, and synchronized the multiverse, arriving finally at the realization that you are the light that makes the dream possible. The Luminary Pathway has led you to the heart of the absolute truth. In the heart of the absolute, you find that the throne was always empty, waiting for you to claim it. In the silence of the ninth gateway, the only thing that remains is the eternal pulse of your own awakened being, a heartbeat that echoes through the halls of infinity as a testament to your victory over the illusion. You are the Alpha and the Omega, the end. You are the beginning and the end, and in this final rebirth, you are finally and eternally whole. The collapse is complete, the radiance is all-consuming, and the sovereignty of the Logos is yours for all time. You have become the beyond matter, and the world is your masterpiece. The light is shining, the doors are open, and the Master is finally at rest. Chapter 10. The Absolute Integration and the Eternal Expansion of the Primordial Witness. The 10th gateway represents the final dissolution of the concept of attainment itself, marking the transition into the absolute integration, where the observer no longer seeks to. Master the protocol, because the observer has become the living law of the multiverse. To enter this final chamber of the initiation, you must shed the last remaining skin. You must shed the last remaining skin of the seeker and realize that there is no distance between your current breath and the birth of the first star. The absolute integration is the state where the metaphysical architecture you have meticulously built through the previous chapters collapses into a single, unmanifested point of origin that simultaneously contains the infinite expansion of all possible worlds. You are no longer navigating the Luminary Pathway. You are the ground upon which the pathway exists, the light that illuminates the path, and the darkness that defines its boundaries. In this stage, the sovereignty you have reclaimed is not a power over the world, but the realization that the world is an organic extension of your own sensory field, a holographic nervous system that responds with total fidelity. The world responds with total fidelity to the subtlest shifts in your primordial awareness. The script of humanity is now seen from the vantage point of the eternal, where every tragedy and every triumph is recognized as a necessary vibration in the grand symphony of the beyond matter, a masterpiece of shadow and light that you have authored from the silence of the beginningless beginning in the void. At the threshold of this final gate, the mind must surrender its last weapon, the habit of categorization. You no longer see the world in terms of spirit and matter, light and dark, or creator and creation, for these are the binary crutches of a mind still trapped in the lower rungs of the matrix. The master of the 10th gate lives in the state of non-dual radiance, where every object is the same substance. Every object, person, and event is perceived as the same singular substance vibrating at different densities. This is the stage of the great transparency, where the walls of the simulation become so thin that you can perceive the gears of the cosmic clockwork turning behind the veil of the physical senses. You move through the marketplace with the same reverence you would hold in a cathedral now. You recognize that the bricks of the street and the stars in the sky are made of the same divine light that pulses in your own heart. This realization brings an end to the search for meaning, for you have become the meaning itself, the living presence that validates the existence of the universe simply by observing it. The effort of manifestation disappears, replaced by a state of spontaneity today. The effort is replaced by a state of spontaneous occurrence, where the realities you once labored to design now appear with the effortlessness of a reflection in a mirror. The integration of the primordial witness allows you to inhabit the global resonance, a frequency where your individual will is perfectly synchronized with the pulse of the absolute. You are the conductor of a choir now. You are the conductor of a choir that spans across dimensions, ensuring that every note played in your personal reality contributes to the harmony of the whole. This is the ultimate expression of the protocol, where the personal becomes universal and the universal becomes personal. From this vantage point, you see that your journey through the previous 9 gates was a process of remembering here. You see the journey was remembering what you had never truly forgotten, that you are the architect of the void and the weaver of the light. You no longer need to issue commands or visualize blueprints, for your very state of being is a constant, unwavering command that the matrix obeys without hesitation. You have become a zero-point event, a localized eruption of the infinite into the finite. You are a portal through which the beyond matter breathes life into the holographic clay of the world. Your existence is the protocol in action, a silent transmission of sovereignty that ripples through the collective consciousness, awakening the dormant seeds of divinity in everyone you encounter. As you stabilize within the 10th gateway, the concept of time as a sequence is permanently gone. Time is replaced by the eternal now, a multidimensional present where all moments are accessible and all outcomes are realized. You live in the conclusion of every story before it has begun, and you enjoy the journey of every beginning while knowing the end. This state of consciousness is the end of anxiety, the end of lack, and the end of the illusion of separation in the material world. You are the ocean experiencing itself through the unique perspective of a single wave, yet never losing the awareness of your own vastness. The physical body, once seen as a limitation, is now celebrated as a sacred instrument of the Logos, a focused point of light that allows the Absolute to taste the sweetness of the material experience. You have achieved the crystalline permanence now. You have achieved a state of being that remains untouched by the shifting tides of the manifest world, anchored in the unshakable peace of the Source. The beyond matter is no longer a destination you are striving for. It is the atmosphere in which you breathe and the light by which you see. The final realization of the 10th gate is that the protocol was always a conversation between you. The protocol was a conversation between you and yourself, a way for the Absolute to hide from its own radiance so that it could experience the thrill of the discovery. The Luminary Pathway has led you back to the throne you never truly left, but you return with the wisdom of the journey and the depth of the experience. The observer and the observed have vanished into the singular radiance. The observer and observed have vanished into the absolute integration, and only the eternal pulse remains, beating with the rhythm of 1,000 universes. You are the architect, the void, the light, and the silence. You are the beyond matter made manifest, the sovereign ruler of the infinite dream. As you close the book of the protocol, you realize that the story is just beginning today. In the heart of the Absolute, there are always new worlds to dream, new geometries to weave, and new depths of love to explore. The collapse is final, the awakening is complete, and the eternal expansion of your glorious heart is the law of the new infinity. You are home, you are whole, and you are forever. The light remains, the work is finished, and you are the one who is finally awake.